So, if I got this right,
Yes.
we're smart enough to invent AI, dumb enough to need it, and so stupid we can't figure out if we did the right thing.
The worst mental torture for early stage VC is when you get the category right, but you invest in the wrong company. The vast majority of category leaders actually get founded a few years after a platform shift.
It reminds me the female founder grant program in Queensland, that it had really good intents, but the way it was constructed, it ended up
catastrophic.
Yeah, so they basically couldn't find any female founders that actually qualified for this funding.
Yeah.
And it was because of the way they'd structured the criteria.
When we do have the chips and we're all interconnected, humanity is probably going to improve automatically, because if we could feel somebody else's pain directly, don't think we would be able to live like that unless you're a total fucking psychopath. Yeah. You would want to try and go and help and solve it.
It's a lot easier not to quit, but you can never give up. Now, you have to also have flexibility, though. You can't necessarily say, I'm never giving up, and you got to be able to weave and bob. You don't have to go through a concrete wall when you can go over it or around it or under it or something.
Good morning, mate. How are you?
Good, buddy. How are you going?
I am good. We are alone for this episode.
Which is a scary thought. We're left unsupervised.
Unsupervised, and probably going to be the least rated one that we've ever done, but that's fine. Ash's dad's a bit unwell at the moment. We send a lot of good vibes and hope for a swift recovery.
Yeah, I wish them all the best. It's not an easy time.
And Jack is on paternity leave.
Yeah. And by all accounts, loving life. So Bub is feeding well, sleeping reasonably well, and is doing well. So he did say it's much more intense than he had expected.
I remember when he went, for the first little while, my life's not going to change much. And I laughed my ass off so much. I was like, fuck, to be young again, you idiot.
But nothing can prepare you for it. Yeah. So, but look, he's doing really well.
Should we just see if he'll answer quickly?
Yeah, totally. This could be that moment where he's actually getting some sleep.
Yeah, okay. No, I'll leave him. I'll leave him alone. Well, let's jump into a couple of things. So we had the pleasure of being down in Perth last week for West Tech Fest.
Yeah, bloody awesome again. So good. I said to you, I was questioning the use of our time in heading over there, and like, man, can we really afford this right now with raising a fund and everything else? But so glad that we went.
I think, yeah, out of all the recent ones, there was just so much there that was of value to us as a emerging manager. It's not just about reconnecting with people and meeting new people. There's a certain energy that you get from all of that as well.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, they get good speakers and the content's good, but it is just about the conversations you have outside those sessions and the relationships that get built and getting to spend meaningful time with people who've all flown in together. So it's the drinks afterwards and the dinners afterwards where you build really good relationships with people in the ecosystem.
And then and they feel like big days because you're still on Eastern time, up like 2 a.m. local time. And so by the time lunchtime comes through, you actually feel that you've achieved a whole lot of greatness.
For that first night of drinks, I think it was about 7 and I was falling asleep. I was exhausted. That's past my normal bedtime on the East Coast.
Yeah. But just Carly, who there's a whole team there, but I guess I spend the most time with Carly. She is so passionate, and the amount of effort that goes into it and the genuine concern of putting on a really great event for people.
Yeah. You could just everything she shared with us too about how she handles and processes that. Like, she is fully committed to making that an epic experience for everyone. And it comes through in the quality of the event.
Yeah. So if you're listening and in the ecosystem, both on the founder level and the investor level, highly recommend it, as we do for South Start, which is in March.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah, looking forward to that one as well. I think they're the two big ones for me. And similarly with Tropical Innovation Fest up north, they're events that pretty much everyone is flying into. And so you have these really great moments of connection. So I highly recommend it. Get on the plane and go.
Yep. What's the thing? I got to meet Kate for the first time. I'm embarrassed that I haven't been to a Tropical Innovation investors yet because it hasn't lined up before, but we're definitely going to make sure that we go this year. And so for all of the people in the southern states and out west, I'd recommend that one as well.
Yeah, normally we miss it because they deliberately put it on during London Tech Week, so we can't go. But this year, Kate assures us they've moved it just for us. But no,
Kate knows how to play to the to fragile male egos. So thank you, Kate.
But it's true. We shift the US mission to make sure we can go to South Star just before it, and then we head off to the US in March after South Star. And now being able to go to Tropical Innovation Fest right before London Tech Week.
Yeah. And then 1013 put on a talk with Joel Pobar and his brother-in-law.
His brother-in-law, Matthew, which is awesome. So it's great I haven't met Matthew before, so that was great. And always good
I have a feeling their family dinners are going to be fairly AI focused, given Joel's role at
Anthropic.
And then Matthew's role at Meta.
Yeah, like cracker of an event. And it's such a shame it was such a short amount of time, because those two guys are absolute geniuses at what they do. And for me as well, like, not to blow our own trumpet, but the value of us going to the US and having a couple of hours in a closed room with Joel while we're over there, he can just be a bit more candid than a big public event with 200 people registered. So I had a bit of a theme of my week, which I'll talk about later, but just the value of getting inside closed rooms and having conversations like that to give you unique insights. And for founders, getting to these events to understand what's happening in AI is very critical at the moment.
I think one of the messages that keeps resonating is that from a technical point of view, these people in the know believe there's nothing further to learn in terms of the path to AGI, which in itself is scary, but we've got to deal with compute and power. But from a modeling point of view, just some of the stuff that's shown, like, and talking with another investor there, a big thing that we look at is, if AGI arrives, are we excited for that in the context of the investment that we're looking at, or would that cause us concern? And it becomes a big filter that hope is not a good risk management strategy. We want to be able to be looking at things, not hoping that the world stays the same. If it goes in a certain direction, would we be excited by that? And that's a big filter for us.
Yeah, and the way the guys were talking about AGI, not even as a question of if, but when, and really not even when, but near-term horizon, the way they're talking about it. And so this changing our understanding of exponential growth. Moore's law predicted for a long time that one computer chip would have the computational power of a human brain by 2030, and that one chip would have the computational power of every human brain on the planet by 2050. And that exponential growth, we're seeing it play in AI. And
so some of the data, the mapping of the actual to the forecast is quite impressive now. The risk part of my brain still thinks up of blueprints of the cave and the bunker that I'm going to be building. And then there was a bit of a discussion of all of the people in the know, how much money's going into bunkers, but you don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole.
No. Did have an interesting chat with a high profile investor who's bought some land and is very much considering building a bunker.
But at every change in technology, there's probably been these types of conversations. I just have a feeling that this is a little bit different because all those other technologies required a human to get trained up and have a certain level of expertise. What we're talking about here is moving into a natural language world. And again, some of the demonstrations and the conversations around software development and professional services and the things that we're seeing on the basis that you're not so far on the spectrum that you think fundamentally humanity is going to change, which I don't think is possible just given how fucking stupid we are broadly. The question becomes, how do we make good investment decisions in a world where those waves are coming? And that's where we've got a particular thesis that I think stands out. And it's about saying, okay, well, if AGI doesn't happen, what does it look like? And if AGI does happen, what does it look like? And how do we find investments that, given the horizon that we take, venture is 5 to 10 years. If either one of those scenarios play out, have we bought a ticket to the ball game of building a durable business? That's the question we've got to ask. And if the durability of the business only happens if one of those things play out, then that's not a good risk-adjusted bet in my view.
Yeah, it was interesting chatting to Joel on Friday. It was Friday night, Monday night. I've lost track of all time. I don't even know what day of the week it is. But sharing some of our recent investments and our thesis behind it, and he can see it with his lens of what's happening in AI, which is good. But what I love about Joel as well, he gives a mental model so that you can make decisions, like looking at where the technology is heading. So it's not so much a prediction of these things will happen as much as it is a decision-making framework of how to look at deals and what we're looking at investing in. So, we are incredibly fortunate, particularly in Brisbane, to have someone like Joel come back and give so much to the ecosystem.
Yeah. And then we also recorded this week 2 podcasts, one with Joe from VU Ventures in Silicon Valley, which is a great episode. I look forward to getting that out.
Yeah, it's awesome getting to know Joe more and more. Like, we spent that time together in the US when we were over with the mission, and then caught up with her again in Adelaide when we hosted some drinks over there. And apparently we're doing an offsite together in Adelaide sometime soon. So, well, actually probably down in the wine region. So, but there's a lot in common with how they think about things, like their value first strategy to winning deals, and how they see, I don't know how to put it, but other than just say, most VCs making mistakes in how they approach things. So, yeah, keen to do a lot more with VU Ventures.
Absolutely. And then we had Vu Tran to do a second episode, which was an awesome episode as well.
Yeah, from VU Ventures to VU Tran. It was bloody awesome as always. Like, that conversation.
That was so good.
And we just could have kept going. Like, there is so much depth, and I loved how he thinks about things.
But both of those guests, Joe from VU and Vu, they brought Sharts with them. Like, it's like they brought gifts, and there was just some classic, and Vu didn't just bring a few. It's a whole PowerPoint presentation that I think is at least 3 or 4 weeks of episodes of Sharts. So I sincerely thank both of them.
I'm still baffled that people of their caliber, like religious listeners of the podcast.
Yeah, when Vu started talking about some of prior episodes and the things that we've spoken about, humbling. The conversation with Vu, and I'd really recommend people listen to it when it drops. But there's a lot of perspectives in there from, this is a 3rd or 4th time founder going again. So there's a lot of lessons there. He really puts his passion out there as to why he's in defense. But I guess I probably didn't realize how much flack he's been personally copping. So it's good to be able to have a long form conversation, and then that overarching purpose from a personal point of view, from a country point of view, from a family point of view, I think really shines.
Yeah, it really does. And I think it's something that's not understood is actually the extra risks that a founder is or an investor is taking in that defense space, both from like just the national security perspective and the potential for corporate espionage, also other espionage by other governments, all sorts of risks that come with that for their family and their personal safety. It's a different level. And the other thing for me with that episode, you see this in multi-time founders where they recognize more the humanistic elements that actually lead to success. And the conversation we had in that episode around alignment of like what I call soul with role, or like the personality profile into the job description. And I think, first-time founders probably don't appreciate the value of that. And it's something you focus so much on, Don, like your expertise in helping founders understand that value, and particularly as it, through the life cycle stages. So that was really refreshing to hear him tripling down on that and how he's approaching it now with this venture.
Yeah. So once that drops, I recommend people have a listen. Well, because we don't have the smarter of our teammates available, I've put together just a slightly different type of episode. But I found this in terms of AI, which is Jerry Seinfeld's view, which was, I thought, a little bit funny.
You saw this. Someone's created this thing on Twitch. It's an AI Seinfeld. It's a never-ending.
I've seen it.
It's a never-ending episode of Seinfeld, 24/7. It's going on for years now.
All right. AI, first of all, artificial intelligence. Let's be honest, most of the intelligence we've encountered in our life, pretty artificial, right? AI began, all we had was real intelligence, beginning of mankind, right?
Yes.
Didn't work. So, we were dumb, still dumb.
So that, yeah.
All our thinking,
Intelligence
so we
didn't work.
kept thinking until we could create a fake version of it so dumb people would seem smart.
Yeah.
And then we thought, well, maybe that wasn't the smartest thing. Because what if the fake brain gets smarter than the real brain? We would look even dumber. So, if I got this right,
Yes.
we're smart enough to invent AI, dumb enough to need it, and so stupid we can't figure out if we did the right thing.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, spot on.
The insight for me there is a good point that if we end up creating something that's smarter than us, it just tells you how fucking stupid we actually are.
Yes, we're dumb enough to need it.
But Jeff Bezos, who certainly knows a thing or two about building a business, there was a thing that came out of during the week, an interview that he did, and this is his view. And the reason I guess I shared this is that I have a similar kind of view that unless you're taking this approach this isn't about you becoming AI first, so to speak, but unless you're looking at every part of your business and saying, how do I leverage this now? I think you get left behind. But let's see what Jeffrey has to say.
What is it that you're doing at Amazon?
AI.
AI.
Yeah, and so there are a few things, but it's 95% AI.
And where do you
So it's just so because we're literally working on 1,000 applications internally. So AI, you have to remember, AI, modern AI, is a horizontal enabling layer. It can be used to improve everything. It will be in everything. This is most like electricity. These kind of horizontal layers, like electricity and compute, and now artificial intelligence, they go everywhere. I guarantee you there is not a single application that you can think of that is not going to be made better by AI.
Totally agree.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing is just this big divergence. We're trying to help our portfolio. We've mentioned in a previous episode, we've put on a data scientist who's got a lot of capability in AI tools. But the big challenge for founders and investors supporting founders is actually they're trying to run their business day to day. They're trying to keep the lights on. They're trying to keep all the different parts moving. But you've got to find the time and the space and create the expertise and the energy to actually look at these opportunities. And if you don't, you're in trouble. And so actually at the foundation of all this stuff, that's great to listen to Jeff and others. But you've actually got to implement the cultural, managerial frameworks and tools that say, hey, I can run this thing day to day, but I can also create the time and the space and the energy to look at all the opportunities and implement them in the face of day-to-day demands against humans that generally don't like change. They don't like changing the status quo. That's more and more that is so important for the role of the founder and the founding team and the board. Otherwise, you're getting left behind.
100%. And also, like our little beer chat after the Joel event, like understanding who on your team has the right expertise and knowledge, because this is such a fast-moving space. And if you're tinkering with something, chances are there's something overtaking you. So making sure you've got those unique insights and you've got an expert capability somewhere there to guide the development of AI into what you're doing.
But also the energy and the mindset. So when we announced that we were bringing on this role, there was two types of people in our environment. The ones that went, fuck, I want to be first. What do I need to do? Can I get this in? And then the ones that were too busy.
Yeah.
And we didn't hear from. And I know which of those groups is likely to survive all of this.
Yeah, completely. And this is why we focus on the work that we do, because it is bloody hard for a founder who's head down. What's the saying you used on? Like, you have to be able to cross the street and chew gum at the same time. Was it Deezy's line? It's so true. You have to be able to carve out time for these types of things. You can't be bogged down purely in BAU operational activities.
Now, as a little plug, ABC, that's what we do partly at the offsites, right? The systemic tools and processes and ways of doing this. And that's why we spend 2 or 3 days together and we show you the way that this actually works. And that's why we like to have a cross section of people at these offsites, because whether you're a very small company or a very large company, at the highest level, you've got to do the same thing. You have to be able to, as you say, cross the street while you're chewing gum, fly the plane while you're building it, all of that shit. But actually how you go about doing that changes based on where you are. And that's part of why the offsites are important, to be able to spend that time. And we like inviting external people in, not just the portfolio, because then you create a network, you get to learn from one another. And so all of that is on our website.
Yeah, if the listeners keen, like drop me an email, just aaron@tribeglobal.vc, or give me a call if you have my number, and more than happy to chat through the offsite and get you there.
Now, another, like what we're seeing with the people that are using AI for the first wave of stuff is not just in some of the automation and adding resource, but it's also the inside piece. And I just thought this post was really interesting. So Matteo Grassi, who's building ethical AI for behavioral health, what he did was interesting. He said, I got my hands on the leaked Andrew Tate community chats, but instead of hot takes, he did something different. He analyzed the 500,000 plus messages using HANA NLP capability to create a psychological profile, not for drama, but to understand how these ideas spread. And so he's taken all of the chats, all of the messages, dumped it into an AI tool. And then for the listeners on the YouTube, I'll share this screen, but for listeners at home, he then actually mapped certain things just to see what the words and the language were coming out. And what he found was actually in this data, which I don't think is surprising given it's Andrew Tate, that actually the core traits of the messages demonstrated extreme authoritarian leadership, high emotional suppression, binary us versus them, intense reward-based motivation, hyper-masculine language and programming. Now, again, he ran it across some models, things like narcissistic traits, 82%, anxiety markers, 78%, behavioral addiction signs, 75%, OCPD patterns, 95%, emotional blindness, 85%. And then he maps it out into these different indicators, core traits, and a risk assessment. The power of AI, of being able to take bulk information like that, like a whole lot of chats and messages, and then spit out that insight without even getting into the discussion that poor old Andrew Tate didn't receive enough nurturing as a baby and as a child. That sort of insight and data lives in companies. And so just being able to have a tool where you can drag all of your information in to help with your decision-making, your strategy, your planning, highlight issues. Like if you're not doing that today, you are so far behind.
Absolutely. And tools like this will become embedded into things like Zoom, things like video conferencing calls in team meetings, where you can have some real-time understanding and analysis. Like I can see for things we talk about, PAEI or DISC, like these types of things, being able to get deeper insights into others. I remember a tool from, it would have been about 5 years ago, where you could put in social media handles of someone and it would spit back these types of characteristics. And it was big focus around cluster B personality disorder type profiling. And people started sharing their results, and then there were a whole heap of people who wouldn't share their results because it shows some deep narcissistic traits. But the criticism of that tool at the time was, by only looking at social media posts, there is a natural like bias or tendency in how we post and talk about ourselves. But it looked at things about the use of a lot of I rather than we. It looked at key phrases. It looked at even at pictures you were posting and how many of the pictures were of yourself as opposed to others, and all these kind of indicators. So these tools have been in development for a while, and I can see them becoming embedded, just ubiquitous across an organization, so that teams can perform better and get better insights.
Yeah, and why would we go and put on a central data scientist? Well, different companies. So in the family office, as an example, we use OneDrive. We've got various operating platforms for the different business units that just have like millions of bits of data. And so you really do need a proper data science approach to make sure that you drag all of that information in, you store it correctly, you index it correctly, and then from an AI point of view, that you're able to tokenize it correctly. And then once you can do that, the ability to do proactive reporting or heat mapping on where there are issues. Like, we've got different operating business units that it's very easy to only find out something has gone wrong way later. But actually, if all of your data is coming in and it's looking for certain words or certain issues or whatever else, and it's able to proactively flag up stuff, we're seeing that just being an absolute game changer. And that's why we're trying to bring that to the portfolio, because ultimately, if you go and identify problems faster than your competition and turn that into like an asset, that's how you win. Companies disappear because they didn't identify problems and they didn't solve them fast enough. And when you're an early stage business and you don't have the resources of your competitors, one of your competitive advantages can be, we are bloody good at identifying problems quickly and solving them. And okay, you're not going to solve Andrew Tate and his community because that's his whole revenue model. But it's that kind of thing. If you aren't now already able to take every email, every message, dump it into some kind of environment where you can start getting some insights, you're behind.
Yeah, and this comes back to something Joel mentioned the other night as well, around even the LLMs, like the large models, not necessarily small proprietary ones, ingesting all of your corporate information and then sitting in the background for longer term problem solving. So at the moment, we use these GPTs for pretty much basic interactions that are solved within minutes. And what he was describing is a shift to where things are, you can give it problems to solve over hours, days, weeks, or months. And so these agents will be sitting in the background of your organization, consuming all of the internal comms and data and predicting problems, but also solving them in the background. And so you can see a world of just hyper efficiency. It also made me think, I'm talking about this, but like the Don AI PIP tool that sits in the background, identifying problems, flagging them, allocating them, and potentially solving them is just, it makes total sense.
There was a post, YC's request for startups. I didn't realize they put out a list, but apparently they do. Winter 2025. And it's quite an interesting one because it gives a bit of a view of what the YC team at least think the world's going. But one, so government and public safety. So like computer vision systems for license plates, software that reduces police paperwork, creating tools for emergency response coordination. Then another one is manufacturing, like specialized industrial robots. Put a link to this: chips and engineering, stablecoins, new jobs, bio and health, consumer, crypto. Like I just found it fascinating. It's like a call list of, hey, if you've got something in these areas, we see customer demand, whether it's B2B or B2C, come and have a chat to us.
Yeah. So YC have previously often put out, here's the things we would like to see, but this is becoming more specific in almost like a shopping list of, we want these specific things. And where my head goes reading this is much like what we're seeing in VC. Like the VCs are looking to add real value, in particular on the distribution side. And I look at Tom Waterhouse's success with his fund, like phenomenal returns, because he identifies the companies that they can plug into their distribution channels and models and where they can add real value that way. And so what I'm reading between the lines here with YC is they know the customer demands, they know where the market opportunities are on the buy side, and now they're looking to search for the companies to fit that. And I think increasingly this is where, this is why we do what we do with our thesis and structure and strategy. But there's a lesson in here for VCs that are purely generalists or purely allocating capital. The other thing for me from this is, the pickup of B2G. It's something we see, like Vendor Panel with their success, for example. Manufacturing, particularly in the era of Trump, trying to bring things back on shore in the US market. Chips, well, that's obvious in the world of AI. And then the last one, new jobs because of the AI. Like if you look at those, YC are basically predicting massive disruption of job markets. And so this is a great, for a founder listening to this thinking, oh, we're already in business, we're not going to apply to YC. I think understanding what YC are seeing as the future of the market and where it's heading is actually, read between the lines. There's some good insights in this.
Now, it's a bit early for Sharts, but Ash shared this. So Toy Story, so I've just put it up there. We've been accepted into YC to revolutionize the future. And which character is this again? Buzz Lightyear.
Yep, Buzz.
And then the second part is every other YC company looks exactly like Buzz Lightyear. So that probably not far off.
Yep.
Now, whether it's YC or any of the other accelerators that are out there, investors are ultimately trying to find the generational winner. And there was a post by Oliver Molander, who's a data and AI entrepreneur. He says the worst mental torture for early stage VC is when you get the category right, but you invest in the wrong company. The vast majority of category leaders actually get founded a few years after a platform shift. So as an example, if you knew in 1995 that search was going to be big, you didn't actually want to invest in the first ones, which was Excite, Alta Vista, and Ask Jeeves. And I'm old enough to actually remember when those. But if you wanted to own the category winner, which was Google, you actually needed to be investing a few years later. And there's a chart that I'll just share here. Like it just shows the market cap and then the time, 1994, 95, 96, 97, 98. And yeah, you could have invested in all of those and then lost your ass only to find that Google was the winner. And that's part of our challenge, that we're invested in a number of sort of areas where there is a platform shift. Have we gotten the category winner? And that really comes down to the founders. Now, some models are to invest in multiple players in the same industry. I think that leads to dysfunction. I think we've taken an approach where we're just going to back one. And we tend to choose things where multiple winners can actually coexist. Now, that may make us more risk adverse in investors, but yeah, a world where multiple people can exist and still get a venture return of 10, 20, 50, 100 times other places we look at.
Yeah, completely. We look at things we look for ventures that are category leaders, but they're blue ocean markets. Like they're a first of kind purchase. So there is often a market education piece, and trying to pick the winner in that category is inherently difficult. And it's not just search engines. I remember Facebook was the 13th social media platform. MySpace was killing it at the time. And I even look at Uber now with Waymo and where the future of ride sharing and having these autonomous fleets, like we will just own autonomous vehicles that are out earning cash for us when not in use. But the space we play in B2B and the markets we play in, yeah, we're looking for things where there can be more than one winner.
Well, you just reminded me about, like, Zuckerberg recently did a video, like, even though they were late to the party, why did they win, that you've just reminded me about? Let me share the screen because I think it's probably relevant to investors and founders.
I don't know, large companies are slow and they lack conviction. And I think is one of the advantages, I think, of being a kind of founder-driven large company. But one of the kind of things that I've thought about from time to time is, like, why was it the case that we were able to build Facebook and that some other company did it, right? It wasn't like it was a super novel idea, right? There was Friendster before, there was MySpace, there's all this stuff. Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, they all like had versions of it. Why didn't they do it? And I think it's like, I mean, we watched them, right? In the early days, yeah. It's like fumbling around. And it's not that they had a lack of talent, right? I mean, we were like a ragtag group of children, right? It's like and they had like all these like serious engineers and like serious infrastructure. And so I think the reason is because people doubt new ideas before they come to fruition, right? So the narrative with social networking is like, just like this college kid thing. It's like, okay, fine, maybe not college kids, but it's probably a fad. Oh, okay, maybe it seems like it's going to be around for a while, but it's probably not going to make money. Oh, it's making money, but the switch to mobile is going to be pretty hard. And then it's like, okay, by the time we figured that out, it was too late for anyone to go. The companies had lost their advantage. And so what was the issue? I don't know. There's there's probably some team buried deep inside those companies that believed in it, and probably some like VP person who was like, that's probably not the biggest priority, and just like pour some, like, I don't know, sand in the gears or whatever your analogy you want.
Like, to me, that's Hamilton Helbin's counterpositioned, right? We like things that are going up against big incumbents that actually a ragtag group of, he uses children, but just a ragtag group of people can build something that ultimately smarter, much more resourced people can't.
Yeah. And everything we talk about around life cycle, like even his own language there, a founder-led large company Like the fact that that founder energy and when Joel Pobar was at Meta and he worked reasonably closely with Mark, and we used to take groups over back then, the way he would describe the way Mark led and everything was founder driven, and that entrepreneurial energy, and they were actually metrics around failure rates. Like teams had to be failing at 70% of what they were working on in terms of the outcome, not the behavior. But staff, like Joel was describing, staff would get bonuses even if a project failed because they were measuring performance based on the behavior of the team. And if they weren't failing at 70%, then they were deemed not pushing the envelope fast enough. So that culture of constantly, then leading culture statement was move fast and break things. It only changed, I think, a couple of years ago. Whereas a CTO at a Suncorp would be measured on server uptime and reliability of the banking servers, at Facebook, it was the inverse. If shit wasn't breaking, then people weren't getting bonuses because they weren't pushing the envelope.
Yeah. Now, linking back to YC and accelerators, and I think one of Australia's not only best known, but probably most successful early stage accelerators is Startmate. And they got a little bit of negative publicity last week. In an attempt by Startmate to celebrate women leaders, it triggered a heated debate about tokenism versus progress in the tech sector and laid bare deeper tensions about how to drive meaningful change for women in the industry. This is an article that came from Bronwyn Clune of Capital Brief. It was great to spend some time with Bronwyn at West Tech Fest, and again, longer form conversations with people to actually understand things a little deeper.
Oh, it's bloody
Can't
awesome.
be beaten.
Both Bronwyn and Simon Thompson from Startup Day, like just so great to have a proper sit down conversation, have dinner, have drinks, and get to know them more. That was fantastic.
Even though, so we've got to lock in with Simon because he agreed to come on and do an end of year of wrap, and I need to get him the succulent Chinese meal shirt.
I forgot about
Given he had suggested we do a runner. No, just joking. Simon didn't suggest that. I may have suggested that, and anyway. Back to the news. Yeah, so Startmate recently announced entries were open for its Woman Leader of the Year award, which offered a $500 voucher for the winner. The initiative intended to recognise the outstanding women has instead sparked criticism about the perceived adequacy of the program. That started when Kate Stewart, a former participant in Startmate's programs and self-funded participant in its First Believer angel investment program, posted on LinkedIn that the initiative was disappointing, poorly considered, and undervaluing women yet again. Stewart pointed out that the prize, $500 in vouchers from sponsors rather than cash, seemed particularly inadequate given Startmate's significant resources. She noted that it invests millions each year into startups and receives $1.8 million from the Victorian government just in 2021 alone, alongside an undisclosed investment from Tatarang in 2023 that was specifically for addressing funding gaps for women-led startups. Now, Startmate's defenders point out that the organisation has a substantial track record in supporting women entrepreneurs. They noted that amongst the accelerator's investments over the past 6 years, 42% had at least one woman in the founding team, and that it assisted more than 1,000 women in securing technology sector jobs. Now, for those that may not be aware, 42% being women is a really good result. There are others that have achieved higher results, but for a generalist environment to achieve that result is a good result. It goes on to say that our belief at Startmate is that celebrating women is important and not tokenistic, especially when it sits on a foundation of relentlessly supporting and uplifting thousands of women across the ecosystem. But nevertheless, it has sparked a broader discussion about how the technology sector should approach diversity initiatives. There's multiple angles that you can take on this one, as given today we're two blokes on a podcast. It's, I believe, multiple things to be true, including that there are some biases, there are some challenges, and at the same time, I also believe that there's some things that get misattributed. These things do leave me to a bit of concern that you got to be careful not to create an environment where we'll don't bother doing anything.
I agree. That
because it's you're going to get attacked. I can also see at the same time a $500 voucher for services from someone like Startmate. I don't know what their resourcing is. I just want to be careful that there is an environment where I go fuck it too hard. I'll just not do anything.
I think reporting on these things is really important, and the feedback loops on this are incredibly important. And yeah, from my again, not close to the team, but my read of what the CEO Michael said there around Startmate is an unfinished product, they seem to be at least receptive to the feedback. But I think the required part for all of us in the ecosystem is to try, and we are going to get things wrong, and be welcome to the feedback and the criticism to make it better. And we continually ask for feedback around our missions and our offsites and how to improve the top end of our deal flow funnel and all of these things, because we genuinely do want to do better. We want to blind spots.
Someone posed a question to me because we run these fireside chats, but we try and use actual fires. So either on my paddock or Mick Dempsey's property, like it's a bit kitsch, but something a bit different. But somebody said, well, fires are very masculine. Would that would repel a whole lot of women from attending? I'm like, well, A, is that true? And B, fuck. Okay. There's industry standard of a fireside chat where having it beside a fireside, what do you want me to do? But I think I do want to do a call out to Michael's response though. I think founders and CEOs land themselves in the media when they don't want to. And I think Michael's response was excellent, because it's an unfinished product and we're always striving for improvement. Like, he's acknowledged, he's not coming out fighting going, oh, fuck off. But at the same time, he stands his ground. However, we're committed to championing diversity in our industry and won't let this distract us from our commitment. So I think it finds a good balance of, hey, willing to listen, but it
reminds me the female founder grant program in Queensland, that it had really good intents, but the way it was constructed, it ended up
catastrophic.
Yeah, so they basically couldn't find any female founders that actually qualified for this funding.
Yeah,
and it was because of the way they'd structured the criteria. Now, thankfully, they went out and actually listened to the market, got some feedback, and it's since changed. And from what I've heard, that funding is now starting to be deployed. So, and to be transparent on that one, knowing the Advanced Queensland team that actually designed that, they are a predominantly female team within Advanced Queensland that actually designed and had carried to that program. Ultimately, so there needs to be feedback loops on this stuff, and that's why this type of reporting is important. We need to hear the feedback, and it needs to be considered. And it sounds like, again, not knowing for sure, but it sounds like Startmate are going to take this feedback on.
Like you said earlier, Aaron, can you believe that I've managed to put something in there that we're going to suggest that Donald Trump has something fundamentally of value?
If you start suggesting a Musk quote of value at some point, then I'll get more concerned.
Oh, no, then you will have known I've consumed far too much of stuff I shouldn't be. Look, you want to always try and focus on the message itself rather than, I think, the delivery mechanism, even though the orange bandit makes it hard. But anyway, let me play this.
Never, ever quit. Never quit. And I've seen people quitting. And if they would have held out longer, they would have been successful. I've seen it so much. I've seen some of the most brilliant people in the world that never made it because they were quitters. They were just quitters. They would quit. They just couldn't take it. They couldn't, whatever. One of the things about loving what you do is that it's not work, and therefore you don't quit automatically. It's a lot easier not to quit, but you can never give up. Now, you have to also have flexibility, though. You can't necessarily say, I'm never giving up, and you got to be able to weave and bob. You don't have to go through a concrete wall when you can go over it or around it or under it or something. You have to have flexibility. You have to always be able to change course a little bit, maybe always with that same goal, but don't quit.
It's the second bit of what he says is where the intelligence is. And it's something that we constantly talk about. Like, there's this whole view of successful founders obviously often stand up and talk about how they didn't give up and whatever else. But we see a lot of people that like you're flogging a dead horse.
Yeah.
But what Donald says there is you've got to have flexibility. You've got to be able to weave and bob, and maybe you've got to go under it. Maybe you've got to go around it. You can still have that long-term vision. But I actually found that to be the most intelligent thing I've ever heard come out of him.
Yes. And I guess the intellectual capability of the dichotomy of thinking one thing of Trump, but also respecting the message. And to bring it back to something Ed would quote from the Silicon Valley HBO, the conjoined circles of success being resilience, passion, but flexibility is critically important, because there's so much rhetoric around the resilience piece. Like, oh, you just got to keep going. And like, my rule zero for my kids is don't get dead. You have to be flexible. You have to be able to listen to the data. You have to be able to know when there are moments to tact, I like that word, or pivot, or at some point change strategy. So there's some truth in it. It's a good quote to find.
Well, let's get into some Sharts.
Yeah.
Now, got some from a post from Alex Downey, who's a growth capital investor with Glow Capital. So, speaking of podcasts, this is a chart that she posted on percentage of people who listen to a podcast in the US in the last month. So 5 years ago, it was like 10%. Now it's 47%.
Wow.
So talk about podcasts as a medium.
And Joe Rogan, way out there ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, but Joe Rogan Experience way out there. Then the next one down, according to this, is Call Her Daddy. So interesting.
I did see Chris Titley posted some of his stats from Spotify on his listenership, and it did make me wonder what our stats are.
I don't even know how to get them from Spotify. And to be honest, part of my strategy with not even knowing how to use the reporting is that I think it's best until you do what Harry Stebbings said and get to your first 100. I think what's important is to not look at the stats.
No, I like it. Measure the behavior, not the outcome yet.
Because then you start to get demoralized. My stats is that we have enough people that we see every week that actually tell us they listen to this bloody thing. And whilst I have concern for their mental health, if that's the case, that has been enough of a stat. Now, also in Alex's post, as someone who's looking for a new car at the moment, car models with the most and fewest DUIs. So the Ram truck that we see more and more getting around in Australia is like the highest, and whereas the Toyota RAV4 is like one of the lowest. So the question, so if I wanted to drink drive, is this just saying get a Toyota because you're least likely to get caught? Is there a correlation here or causality?
This is fascinating. I suspect it has more to do with the personality profile that buys each of these types of cars than.
Do you still have your Ford Ranger?
I do, although I just listed it for sale again because
Yeah, okay. Wait, you're fairly high. You're fairly high on the list. I want something that's got like lane keeping.
Oh yeah, it doesn't. Oh, you. This is to replace the Hilux or what?
Yeah.
The Ranger does have it, but it's weird when you feel the steering wheel.
Everyone says it's weird. I just want to have a
turn it
little
off.
Lost opportunity. So thank you, Alex. Good contribution. This one actually came from Chris Gillings when we were having a text chat about how shit Australia is to live in just from its cost of living and living standards. And he provided a chart.
Holy wow.
Chris spent a lot of time in the US where cost of living is a lot less. You get Amazon delivery in like 2 hours. You've got all of these different things. And we were talking about the cost of something, and here is the chart, just shows our inflation rate and our lack of productivity has just seen our living standards bloody die compared to the G7, OECD, and United States. So for those listening at home, all of those other countries and groups of countries, their standard of living has gone up post-COVID. Ours has gone down. When you look at property, inflation, productivity, all these other things, there's a reason why there's a lot of people that aren't sharing in the living standards. And like even yesterday I didn't have time, so I went through Macca's to get just a chicken wrap. $10 for a chicken wrap. When did that happen?
Macca's now is insane. The
When
Big
did
Mac index of inflation, like Australia. This chart just really brings it home, doesn't it? Like we are declining rapidly.
Yeah. So this one is the Euphoria meter, which is a combination of the forward PE, the VIX, and bullish sentiment, and it's going back to 1992. And it just plots the S&P 500 on a log scale, and the euphoria meter is well above anything it's been, even pre-GFC and pre-last tech boom. Like this bloody thing is priced for perfection. This chart is actually is Denmark's weight loss pharma boom. So this is the Danish real pharmaceutical manufacturing gross added value. And it's just up and to the right on the back of Wegovy, Ozempic. This is their GDP. Like just have a look at, okay, they had their post-COVID surge, but compared to, just have a look at these GLP-1 weight loss drugs and how that's just contributed back to the Danish GDP. And here's Denmark's weight loss boom. America has become the largest destination for Danish exports. So when you look at Germany, Sweden, Norway, all fairly flat, but the US is just up and to the right, which sort of makes sense given capitalism has its advantages, but what a fucking awful place for healthcare and weight loss and eating healthily. And these GLP-1 drugs
Absolutely.
seem to have found their home.
I wonder if they'll be tariffed under Trump again.
Yeah. Now, this is another chart. The US now comprises 75% of the MSCI World Index, which exceeds the Nifty 50 era, which was back from the 70s. And Europe and Japan are an even smaller percentage. So again, like just everybody is very, very into the US. So the text messages I receive on my birthday too. And then when you post that you're now in VC, now 47. Hey, congrats on the job at VC. I'm actually working on a project ...
Oh, this is so true.
This was on a platform. So what are the 7 deadly sins? Lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. So lust, Tinder. Gluttony, Uber Eats. Greed, Amazon. Sloth, Netflix. Wrath, Facebook. Envy, Instagram. Pride, LinkedIn.
That is accurate. Devices presented in a different way.
Yeah. I would have thought Coca-Cola would have outperformed Pepsi, but actually cumulative return since 1972, Pepsi is up 10,800%. Coke's only up 4,400%. Warren, you backed the wrong bloody horse, mate.
Yeah.
I think because actually Pepsi is a combination of so many other brands and
That's
food.
Coke too, isn't it? Doesn't Coke have a whole heap of subsidiary brands?
But yeah, something happened in 1997, 1998 where Pepsi just started to absolutely outperform.
Yeah, wow.
I thought this was funny. This is a guy sitting at his desk looking at a computer screaming back at his wife, "Hey, honey, come and look. I found some information that all the world's top scientists and doctors have missed."
Sounds like every influencer on social media.
That's and probably VCs.
Accurate.
So here's a young gentleman meeting the father of the girlfriend for the first time. So my daughter says you work in finance. Yeah, I'm a VC that invests in pure AI. Father, you have exactly 10 seconds to leave the house.
I was chatting to a mortgage broker the other day. We were just talking about the market, all sorts of things. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, you're in VC, so that's like finance." And I was like, "Thanks."
Yeah, not far off. Now, when you're unique, but not exactly useful. So this is an axe with a metal handle and a wooden head. Yep. Unique, but not fucking useful.
Oh, this has to be an award at our tribe Christmas party.
Yeah, the wooden axe. Unique but not useful. That applies to so many things.
Oh, why do I find this one so funny?
Yeah, I have a feeling My darling wife, Elizabeth, mutters this under her breath quite regularly. Yeah, you're unique, but not exactly useful. This is probably a bit too serious for this podcast, but it sort of resonated. One of the quickest ways to know someone will be limited in their achievements is predicted by how much they blame others and complain. Fuck.
Yes, yes, and yes.
But then we'll just end. I can't remember this one. Yeah, so this is more in keeping. So it's that meme where there's that dude sitting on a bed reading a book, and the book says How to Be Happy.
Yeah.
And then you flick open the page and it simply says, stay away from miserable cunts. Now, given our two other teammates aren't here, they can plead ignorance to the language. But yeah, the older you get, the more
I thought you were going to
experience
say
get.
they're having a happy day by avoiding us.
Oh, maybe they've read this book. They're staying away from miserable. That's it.
Well done.
Now, it's not it. Like some of the stuff from will be next week's episode, because there is an eclectic bunch of awesomely random stuff in that. But I already had put together this one.
They were bloody good, Don. What's your theme of the week?
Probably long form.
Yeah, actually, that's good.
Again, with different people's perspectives on different situations, and the media has a role, but at the end of the day, it's written, and it's generally 600 words.
Yeah.
How much better would life be if we could actually facilitate long form conversations to get both sides and both perspectives, and have people bring different experiences and different lenses, and it's like, I don't think it's just me, but I'm so quick to side on one particular way, or so quick to judge based on my own pattern recognition, and then you spend a little bit of time understanding it, and it's just like, fuck, it's not as black or white, or the thing that you thought was really clear.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I think I've said here multiple times, when we do have the chips and we're all interconnected, humanity is probably going to improve automatically, because if we could feel somebody else's pain directly, I don't think we would be able to live like that unless you're a total fucking psychopath. Yeah. You would want to try and go and help and solve it. And so I think that is going to help humanity, but also being able to have better communication and understanding and nuance, I think, is going to be able to do it. But for right now, we're in this situation where different people have different perspectives that are coming at it from different angles, and there's cross purposes and all these things, which then leads to challenges. And so for me, it's like, how do I not be so quick on this is exactly what I believe? How do you keep an open mindset, and how do you still hone in on something, but understanding that your perspective is always going to be different?
I think that's a really good one. And totally agree with you. I think when the human computer interface gets to the point where we can communicate with each other at the speed of thought, I think first humanity will take a dive. It'll probably be horrendously bad when we all have complete transparency and visibility over thoughts. But then there should be a correction curve, I hope, if we haven't killed each other. But I think it would solve a lot of other problems if we do eventually get there. I think for me, the theme of the week is the value of having unique insights that others don't. I think of our time, I keep reliving the time with Joel in the US and how much he could share with us in that closed room versus a public event, and the unique insights we draw from that, and the competitive advantage we have from that. But it does have a shelf life. Like, these things have a half-life. And I think the more you can do to put yourself in situations to get unique information, I think you...
Well, it's like that thing I shared this morning, which I think is actually really quite clever. It's an expert network that if you want to get really quickly understanding an industry, they've done what seems to be quite a clever job of putting together CEOs, and they incentivize them through payment and whatever else. But if you're looking at a particular space going, okay, at least part of it, I need to talk to somebody who's in the thick of it. Like with our last investment into Squizify, part of the family office's operations is we get regularly inspected by food inspectors. Yep. So I spoke to one of them, and somebody that's on the ground inspecting all of these places, and I got these insights from that end inspector that made me even more convinced that, hang on, we are at the beginning of something. Intellectually, it doesn't make sense that something like Squizify could actually have a space in this day and age. It's 2024. Isn't everything digital? Well, no, actually, it's not. And you've got this regulatory environment that's more and more fining the shit out of people. You've got the brand risk with social media that you can lose your brand in seconds. And then you've got, we're inside a kitchen doing things the same way that we've been doing it for a bloody 50 years.
100%.
And being able to get to that unique insight of, okay, who are the people out there hitting people over the head? That's the inspectors. Get their insight. Yes, so I'm with you.
Yeah, who are the people outside of your bubble? And for me, it resonates this week in particular, reflecting back on going to Westech and the value of that. And for founders who often dismiss, I don't have the time or the resources, whatever, to go to an international market, like the insights you will get from being in these unique environments, unique rooms with unique perspectives, they're transformative.
Well, I know you've got a meeting in seven minutes that you got to get your ass
It's
to.
a 5-minute drive, so I better go. What are you looking forward to, though, Rondon?
My introverted darling wife, who would normally not naturally go out of her way for social things, says, let's hold carols at home. And I'm like, yep, sweet. We've now got 107 people confirmed for carols on our front paddock in the middle of the wet season, mind you. You've seen what the weather's going to be. So then I've also got to clean out the sheds. So we might end up having to split up into sheds, but somehow, and then I'm thinking like, well, if we've got 107, why not round it out? So just put it out. But anyway, I don't know how I'm going to cater for all of this.
Mate, I'm looking forward to it, but I was thinking about the rain. Like, it's far out. I don't know if this rain's ever going to stop.
Yeah, we'll be right. I'll work it
We'll
out.
just add to it.
And what about you?
I'm looking forward. I've got a couple of things down the coast, Chrissy parties, which I'm really looking forward to, and then your place. So it's going to be a jam-packed weekend of socializing and party time.
I give my gift to you, pum-pum-pum-pum. I'm getting ready.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
I've been told no karaoke, but
I
as
just
if-
assumed you were singing all of the carols for the whole night. So
Well, given I've still got the speaker system from the wedding, it's going to be loud and it's going to be intense. All right, I'll let you get to your meeting.
all right,
All right,
cheers,
buddy.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.